Welcome back to Talking Your Walk, and this morning I've got a lovely lady here who is the founder of Under the Dancing Tree, and that deals with lots of different types of work, spiritual work, looking at dance, sound healing, healing itself, healing movement. But Rachel will tell us more about that herself when we have a little chat with her. So hello Rachel, thanks for joining me. And can I start off by asking, where were you brought up?
So I was brought up in North Wales. So I was born in Wrexham, but brought up in Flintshire. So Welsh to the bone.
And what kind of child were you? Were you into dance as a child?
For me, like my first kind of experience was with nature. So I always come back to nature. That's at the center of what I do, as well as dance. So for me, it was playing in the trees and climbing the trees, and the trees were my friends, and even making mud cakes. But I was very much from a very young age, facilitating space and houses for, fairies and the elementals, and and I used to make houses and hotels. So it was all about facilitating and connecting with nature, and just making space for others. That was very much in me, even as a very, very young child. I actually didn't. Sorry. So dancing, I was always interested in dance, but as a very young child, I had a father who really was. He was the center of our universe, and I wasn't really. My mother did encourage me, but it was very much following what my father wanted to do and wanted us to do. So my dad was really into athletics. So I knew that I loved dance, I loved music, and just being out and free, and just dancing in nature and dancing in the water. But this was kind of very alien to my father, so it wasn't something that was encouraged at all, really. So I ended up doing athletics for a very long time, and I was actually at one point the Welsh champion for hammer throwing, which is so people know me now, they're like, you're so feminine, you're so I can't imagine you like weight training and things like this. And I was like, no, it was so contrary to what to me as a person, but I was following the leader, my father, really, and that was very much projected onto me. And it wasn't till I came to my teenage years that I really started to find my voice and to speak up for what I wanted to do and to really explore dancing. And I actually found kind of like I call it my grassroots belly dancing when I was 14. And I loved it so much that I began teaching at 16 after school.
Wow. So you've got into that. What kind of jobs did you have? You say you started teaching it when you were 16, but was that full time, or did you take another type of job, or what was that route? What you're doing now?
Yeah, so I was brought up to kind of half and half. So half being told I should have a sensible job that would give me a reliable income. And then there's also the element as a woman that it would be even better to be married, and to to have the income of a wealthy and a successful husband. But my other passion is history. I adore history. And at that point, I was just teaching dance after school. So going into the squash courts, and it wasn't about the money or the income or a business. In fact, I've only come to be thinking about it as a business over the past 5-8 years. It was really about, I just loved it so much, I wanted to share it. So my route actually took me down the more sensible route, which was following my love for history. So I went to university, did a degree in history and anthropology, and then postgraduate and my master's in history again and heritage management. And I still love history, and it's still part of me, but it came to that point where I was just like, I know that I can support people and make a bigger difference doing my dance. And that might mean that I don't make any money. That might mean that everybody else says it's wrong or it's not the right path. But I was like, I just know I have to make a difference. You know, we have one short life, and I just have to support the women in the way that I know that I am, you know, and that calling became stronger than the voices that were telling me to follow the sensible route.
I think that's very courageous to follow your heart and that inner voice than follow what convention dictates. So you started your belly dancing, and then how did you progress from there? What else did you get involved in that led you to where you are now?
So I've always had that running theme of supporting the feminine. When I first saw a belly dancer at age 14, I was so inspired by her and just in her confidence and the love for her body. And I was an exceptionally shy child, teenager, adult that had been very much bullied, you know, and was a bit of an outcast. And to see a woman that was so confident in her own body and enjoying it for her, she was not, you know, it wasn't about anybody else, it was for her. She was in the music, and that thread is kind of weaved all the way through what I do. So I very much began about kind of trying to encourage and support women in loving themselves and loving their bodies, and it felt very natural for me to go down the route of the divine feminine. What kept popping up for me was linking in with my history, I suppose, was about, you know, a time when woman was celebrated, when woman was connected with the earth, that she knew about her cycles intimately. You know, she was the moon, she was the water. And a lot of women disconnect from their bodies that come to me, and they're so disconnected, and they're so in the wrongness of them, they forget how beautiful and magical that they are. And dance is one of the ways that can bring them back into their body. But also I feel like this re-emergence of the celebration of woman, you know, that we had in the past thousands of years ago, you know, when we had when goddess was central, when woman was central and celebrated in life. So it's about reconnecting to those, you know, ancient roots that remind us that woman is something to be proud of, and to own, and to not fear our bodies, that our bodies are really a beautiful vessel of the divine, and they're there to guide us and to talk to us and communicate with us. So I think it's kind of a very natural progression that it went into working with goddess energies and feminine energies, the divine feminine. And then I really kind of, it was actually India that that drew me into sound healing as another level. So I spent 5 weeks in India, and I experienced something called the inner dance process. And I'd always, when you're a dancer, you're interpreting the music. So you are an instrument, you're a storyteller. So the way that you move your arms is showing to your audience, you know, the length of that piece of rhythm or music, or where it is in your body. So it's if the earth, it's in your hips. If it's air, it's in your arms. So I was always kind of connected to music. And then I thought, well, I want a way to move other people in the same way, that they can feel and embody music in the same way. And I realized how healing it was. You know, when you hear the drum, it wakes something up deep in your roots. And when you hear the violin, it opens up the heart space. And inner dance really is actually from the Philippines originally. And the gentleman that kind of downloaded it, he went out onto a desert island and could hear these rhythms inside of him when he was away from society, just with nature. So yeah, so going into that, and then bringing, sometimes music is more of a way that people can access healing more than dance, because I know so many people say, I can't dance, and we have so many inhibitions about our body, that music can sometimes be the introduction to bring people in. The same with meditation as well. So there's so many ways that people can access different, you know, ways of healing. And we're all so unique, and sometimes, you know, things might not resonate and other things do. So it's about offering all these different kind of doorways and pathways that are all ultimately about coming back into our body and remembering the beauty and the amazingness that we are. But, you know, they all come back to this, central point.
I think it's a wonderful way to help people to tap into their own inner strength and inner being. So with COVID, obviously the dance classes came offline. Did you know stopped? Did you actually then go online with some of your courses and workshops? Have you been doing that online?
Yeah, so at first I was really disappointed, because by not being in person, you miss some of the magic, really, you know, because I mean, from a health and safety point of view, I can't see my students as well, which for me is important, that people are dancing and moving safely. So it kind of needs some extra kind of, you know, on Zoom trying to watch people and sometimes recording. So I had some inhibitions first, and because it's so, I don't know, you can feel sometimes a bit of a resentment about technology and the internet, because it, you know, it's on a completely different level, and it seems to overconsume and become addictive, you know, in our lives. So it's a bit like, oh, I don't want to be on the internet. However, that potential of reaching so many more people and supporting people, it got to the point where I could see that a lot of my students, and more women, were so anxious and so many feelings coming up, that I knew I just had to get myself more on the internet than I was before. So I was delivering meditations online before, but it's been a real learning curve, you know, doing things via Zoom. But that's opened so many doors for the people that can't come in person, you know, to classes, or can't make a retreat, because it means taking a whole, you know, weekend or a week away. So it's actually, so for me it's been a huge learning curve, you know, YouTube, Zoom, Facebook, Instagram. It's amazing, there's so much there, you know, offering. But so now I'm delivering completely online, because obviously I can't return, and most things I can deliver online. And it still has that real connection. And in fact, it's been offering a connection that is essential, you know, especially during this time when we've all been quite isolated and alone. It has offered some pathway of reaching each other, which has been really quite wonderful.
Oh, I think the amount of workshops and courses now being offered online is amazing. And as you say, it reaches people that you wouldn't normally reach, and maybe who couldn't come to you. People on islands as well that are now tuning into things that they've never tuned into before, never had the opportunity. So I think it's serving its place. So you're saying you're doing this now. If people were watching this and wanted to get in contact with you, Rachel, how do they do that? What's your website address or your Facebook page?
So if you look for Under the Dancing Tree, and then you will find me on everywhere, apart from Twitter. So Facebook, it is Under the Dancing Tree, and then there's Instagram as well, which I love, because you can just post beautiful pictures, and you just got a wall of pictures. And then there's YouTube, and my website as well, which is again www.underthedancingtree.co.uk.
Oh, grand. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure. Just got to say thank you very much. I'll find those links and I'll put them on the video when we've done, when I've put it up on YouTube. And thank you so much, Rachel. That's been great.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Take care now.